Today, we're diving into a tale of two ions, nitrate and phosphate. They're completely invisible, but they're hiding in our water, and we're going to explore the incredible science that lets us find them. It's really a story of a huge scientific success and a really stubborn, unsolved mystery.
So let me ask you, what's hiding in your water? It sounds like a simple question, right? But the answer is pretty complex. The water we use every single day contains this whole cocktail of dissolved substances. Now, most of them are totally harmless, but a select few, even in the tiniest amounts, can be a major risk, both to our health and to our environment.
So let's meet our two main characters. On one side, you've got nitrate. This one is a big concern for human health, and it's linked to some really serious conditions, like blue baby syndrome in infants. Then, on the other side, you have phosphate. It acts as this powerful environmental catalyst that can set off these explosive algae blooms, literally choking the life out of our lakes and rivers. So, two very different problems that need one very, very smart solution.
Okay, so to tackle these invisible threats, we obviously need a way to see them. And that means we've got to dive into the science of chemical sensors. This is the frontline technology that's protecting both our health and the health of our planet.
So how in the world do you catch an invisible ion? Well, you use a specialized sensor, and it's called an Ion-Selective Electrode, or just ISE for short. I want you to think of it like a highly trained chemical detective. It's built for one mission and one mission only, to find and measure one specific target ion and completely ignore everything else.
So how does this little detective actually work? It's basically a four-step process. First, you just dip the sensor into the water. Now, the magic really happens in step 2. There's a special membrane that interacts only with our target ion. This interaction generates a tiny, measurable voltage. And that voltage, that's the crucial clue. It corresponds directly to the ion's concentration.
But how do we turn that voltage, that electrical clue, into a number we can actually use? Well, that's where something called the Nernst equation comes in. You can think of it as the secret code or the Rosetta Stone of chemistry. It's what translates the raw voltage from the sensor into a precise concentration, telling us exactly how much nitrate or phosphate is in the water.
All right, let's turn to the first character in our story, where this technology became a true out-and-out success, the detection of nitrate.
When it comes to nitrate, the ISE is an absolute champion. The technology is so well developed, so reliable, that it's just a standard tool for water quality experts all over the world. It's fast, it's accurate, and it really represents a problem that science has, for all intents and purposes, solved. And you don't have to take my word for it. The performance data proves it. What this chart is really showing us is that these sensors are both incredibly sensitive. They can detect even tiny amounts of nitrate. And they're also incredibly versatile, giving accurate readings across a huge range of concentrations. This is what peak performance in chemical sensing looks like. And maybe the most impressive thing? They are incredibly fast. A nitrate ISE can give you a stable, accurate reading in less than 30 seconds. That kind of speed makes it absolutely perfect for real-time analysis, letting people make immediate decisions out in the field or at a treatment plant.
But this tale has a twist. If the technology works so brilliantly for nitrate, you'd think, hey, it should be a simple matter to do the same for our second ion, phosphate. But you would be wrong. Phosphate is the great challenge.
And this contrast gets right to the heart of the mystery in our story. While nitrate sensing is basically a solved case, phosphate sensing, well, it remains this unsolved puzzle that has challenged chemists for decades. And the big question is, why? Why is it so hard?
Well, the difficulty really boils down to 3 major hurdles. First, phosphate ions cling to water molecules like a security blanket, and the sensor has to be strong enough to rip that blanket away. Second, phosphate just loves being in water and really resists entering the oily environment inside the sensor. And finally, its chemical shape actually changes depending on the water's acidity, which makes it a constantly moving target. So, with chemistry kind of hitting a wall, scientists are getting creative. They're actually turning to biology for inspiration. The hunt for a solution now involves creating what are called biomimetic ionophores. These are molecules that are custom-built to mimic the way nature itself grabs onto phosphate inside our own cells. It's really about learning from life to solve a tricky chemical puzzle.
But this phosphate challenge, as hard as it is pushing science in some really exciting new directions. It's forcing us to reinvent the technology, and that's leading to a future where sensors are smaller, smarter, and way more powerful than ever before.
The biggest revolution here is the move to all-solid-state ISEs. See, traditional sensors have a liquid-filling solution inside, which makes them bulky and kind of fragile. By replacing that liquid with a solid, conductive layer, everything changes. All of a sudden, sensors can be made incredibly small, super tough, and cheap enough to mass produce.
And what does that revolution look like in practice? It looks like this. We're moving from a single handheld probe to an entire array of different sensors that are screen printed onto one tiny chip. This isn't just a sensor anymore. It's a complete lab on a chip capable of measuring pH, nitrate, chlorine, and more, all at the exact same time.
But before we can just deploy these tiny labs everywhere, there are two final, real-world hurdles to get over. The first is something called biofouling. That's just the gunk and slime that naturally grows on any surface you leave in water. The second is signal drift, which is the tendency for sensors to slowly lose their accuracy over time. Solving these practical problems is the real key to unlocking their long-term potential.
And that brings us to our final thought. We are right on the verge of a world where tiny, intelligent sensors can give us a real-time picture of the chemistry that's all around us. We've mastered nitrate, and the challenging quest for phosphate is driving some incredible innovation. So as this power grows, the real question becomes, what will we choose to see next?